Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaskaram. Welcome to yet another lecture in the series for the course titled History, Evolution and Development of Kuchipudi Dance. I am Dr. Malyada, Associate Professor and Head of the Department for the Department of Fine and Performing Arts, Geetham deemed to be University, Visakhapatnam. In this lecture, we will talk about the contributions of the legendary Guru, Shri Vedantam Lakshmi Narayana Sastry Garu. This is part 2 for the earlier lecture that also spoke about this maestro who has given immense contribution to the Kuchipudi dance drama tradition and most importantly the Kuchipudi solo tradition. Now when you look at the contributions of Lakshmi Narayana Sastry Garu, he is regarded as the Guru's Guru. The so-called legendary Gurus of the Kuchipudi dance tradition were all his disciples. When we come to the section when we discuss about the disciples that he has nurtured and produced, you will be stunned to know that these legendary personalities of Kuchipudi dance, these personalities who are more than life to us, were all his disciples at some point of time. And the contributions of Lakshmi Narayana Sastry Garu are so immense, are so humongous, that today when you look at Kuchipudi, the roots of what we see as Kuchipudi today, be it the solo tradition or be it the females becoming a major part of the Kuchipudi dance tradition, is all because of this legendary figure. Today when a layman looks at Kuchipudi or thinks about Kuchipudi, the first thing that comes to the mind is the solo tradition, of course. But this doesn't mean that there are no yakshaganas or nritya rupakams or dance drama productions as such that are happening in Kuchipudi. There are. But majorly, nowadays, Kuchipudi is more about a solo tradition. And ask me why. Why did it deviate from its dance drama male-oriented tradition? Well, as we discussed before in our earlier lectures, art is dynamic. And why is art dynamic? Not just art, everything is dynamic. Change is the only thing that is constant. When you do not develop yourself, when you do not update yourself according to what the society needs in that current generation, there are highest chances that the decline starts. Guru Shri Vedantam Lakshmi Narayana Sastry Garu belongs to that timeline of India, or mostly the south of India, when the cinema has entered the lives of people. When a lot of different modes of entertainment have come into the lives of people, be it the theatre from Maharashtra or the cinemas from the south of India or the north of India, and many other modes of entertainment and traveling. So he belongs to that particular period when the Kuchipudi had to change its vision, its motive, and its presentational style. And any time when a change happens, or when the people want to change it, it's not because that they realize at a certain point that, oh, you know, I was born to change it. No, it doesn't happen like that. They change it because they realize that certain things are more popular than their own. So they look at a very critical view to their own art form. And when I say this, it is not a joke. looking at your own ancestors, looking at your own family members, looking at your own gurus, your forefathers from a critical view and trying to understand what are the loopholes in that form, or rather what are the things that need to be done for the more popularity of that form, needs a lot of guts. And Vedantam Lakshmi Sastry Garu was a revolutionary in this case. Be it the number of disciples that he has produced, or be it the innovations that he has done, be it the introductions that he has given to Kuchipudi, or be it the popularity that he has given to Kuchipudi, he stands at the topmost level of the innovators, choreographers and legendaries of Kuchipudi dance. We will discuss about the contributions of this great stalwart in this lecture. Vedantam Lakshmi Sastry Garu, as we discussed in the last lecture, if you remember, loved traveling. And because of this innate urge or the love that he had for traveling, he never stayed in Kuchipudi village for more than a few months. He was always on and off traveling to the different places in and around Kuchipudi, and also little far away from the Kuchipudi village or the Krishna district. And because of this love for traveling that he had, wherever he went to perform along with his disciples, when the zamindars or the rajas of that place had invited him to perform in their place, he stayed at their houses and he taught the daughters and the sons and the nearby people who were interested by staying in that place. He never told, okay, I stay here, you come to me and learn. He didn't do that. In any place that he went, he trained disciples. That was probably the very first step of giving an access to Kuchipudi to the non-traditional families. So till the time of Vedantam Lakshmi Sastry Garu, the Kuchipudi dance drama tradition was only in the boundaries of the Kuchipudi traditional families. But he was probably one among the very first people who took the initiative of teaching this dance form to the non-traditional family people. And by doing so, he has increased the scope of Kuchipudi dance. Today it looks very easy to us because we don't belong to that time where traditional arts are only for the traditional community. Today everything is cosmopolitized. I can learn anything that I want. I have the right and freedom. But I'm talking about those days when it was not that case. And mind you, when I'm telling you that he has nurtured students from non-traditional families, he has not restricted teaching the Kuchipudi art form to the elite of the castes. He has taught Kuchipudi dance without any discrimination of class or caste or community. You are interested to learn this? I will teach you this. And I will stay back here for you to teach it. That was the vision that Lakshmi Sastry Garu has got. And apart from teaching to the non-traditional families, the most important contribution of Sastry Garu is that he introduced the Vyasta Nritya Amshas, which we call it in English as the solo dances. And why is this contribution so important? It is because today Kuchipudi is majorly performed also as a solo tradition. In not just Andhra, in not just India, but across the globe. And when a student joins a Kuchipudi class, you are not taught any Yakshaganam. You are not taught any Nritya Rupakam. You are taught solo items at a fundamental level. That is the importance of solo items that the Kuchipudi has absorbed or embraced. And the credit goes to Lakshmi Sastry Garu. What is Vyasta Nrityam? If you remember when I was speaking about Natya, Nritya and Nritta, Nritya is that technical aspect of dance where you only dance for the composition. There is no Purva Kadhamsham, there is no story that is involved in the presentation of that composition, and you are just trying to depict what is told by the Vagyekara or the poet through different dance gestural movements and talk about the composition. That is Nritya. But what did Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu has done? He just didn't introduce the Vyasta Nritya. He also made sure that a certain type of sancharis that we see in the padams of Kshetraya, where, let's say, for example, the Nayika is pining for the Nayaka, though there is no Purva Kadhamsham like a dance drama, where you say, okay, there is a king, there is a villain, there is a heroine, there are other minor characters of male and female artists. Even though that doesn't happen in a Nritya, Shastri Garu has made a very innovative mark of also elaborating how the Nayika is pining for the Nayaka for a more better understanding for the audience. As I said, let's say a Nayika is pining for her beloved, be it a lover or a husband. When the poet writes, he just writes that the Nayika is pining for the Nayaka. It's a single line. But what did Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu has done? He has tried to elaborate through the dance gestural movements as to how the Nayika is pining, which is not written by the poet, but probably thought of by the poet. So the Kavi Hridaya that the poet wanted to keep inside his composition, which is not seen superficially, but is there as a philosophical essence, he took that and tried to elaborate that as a sanchari. The Nayika is waiting for the Nayaka. She's pining. No, the story doesn't end there. What is she doing? She's looking at the clouds, thinking about the Nayaka. She's looking at the flowers, trying to see the essence of the flowers, the fragrance of the flowers. And the fragrance of the flowers is just making her think about the Nayaka. She's seeing a couple walking there. And the moment she sees a couple, she's also thinking about herself and her Nayaka. Now, the poet didn't put all these things in the composition, but he just meant that. And the Kavi Hridaya of the Vagyekara or the poet is not understandable by everyone who's sitting in the audience. Everyone do not have the same intellectual capabilities. But Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu has made this elaboration of the Kavi Hridayam in the solo items, which is still followed till today. And by doing this, you are making the composition more understandable to the audience. And the Shakti or the energy that Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu has got to elaborate is again back to the Yakshagana Paddhati. He belongs, his DNA is from a Yakshagana Paddhati, where it is but natural for the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu to elaborate whatever they want to show, because they belong to a dance drama tradition. Right? So this elaboration of the Vyasta Nritya Amsas, he has done to the solo items. And he just didn't keep it only for the Padams of Kshetraya. Even when he took Tyagaraja Kritis or Annamacharya Sankirtanas or Ramadasa Bhajans, he used all these elaborations in the composition when he's trying to talk about the Kavi Hridayam. Another very important contribution of Vedantam Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu is that he introduced women to the Kuchipudi dance. Can you imagine today Kuchipudi dance without women? No. 85% are women dancers. But a few years back, a few decades back, women were not allowed to do Kuchipudi. It was only a male-oriented tradition. You could have, if you were born 100 years before or 120 years before, you wouldn't have seen women dancing Kuchipudi. I wouldn't have had the guts to sit here and talk about Kuchipudi. My guru is a woman. I am a woman. I have many students who are girls. All of us would never have gotten the opportunity to learn Kuchipudi if Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu had never done this innovation or this initiative of introducing women to Kuchipudi dance. Shri Vedantam Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu realized the importance that is given to female-oriented subjects or their popularity, and also the importance of teaching dance to women to present these. And how did he realize? It's not overnight. Because he traveled and visited places where there were a lot of Sadr presentations, Devadasis presenting dances, and a lot of melams where women were also allowed. He realized the importance of having women in the presentational techniques. The popularity or the lasya concept that is directly woven into the fabric of Kuchipudi if women are directly involved. Now I'll tell you another thing. It is not that the earlier Kuchipudi people were anti-women. No, it is not like that. Lakshmi Shastri Garu belongs to a period where the traveling component was much more easier than his forefathers. Women were not allowed into Kuchipudi is not because they were anti-women. There were certain societal conditions, certain political conditions, certain economical conditions, certain domestic conditions because of which women were not encouraged to dance. But he belongs to a different timeline where it was okay for women to travel, to dance, to showcase their art. Alright, so Vedantam Lakshminarayana Shastri Garu took the initiative of teaching more number of women the Kuchipudi dance tradition. And also because of the solo tradition that he started, or rather conceptualized on a very large scale, choreographed a lot of solo items. And when I say he initiated it, he didn't initiate with one composition or let's say some 10 compositions. He has almost choreographed around 100 compositions for solo items that he didn't just give the rule book to do a solo dance. He has also given a repository of items that the dancers can pick and perform. Right. Sri Vedantam Lakshminarayana Shastri Garu was very much influenced by the Sadiratam that he applied the format of their presentation into the Kuchipudi solo dance style. As I said before, Lakshminarayana Shastri Garu was so impressed with the way the Sadiratam that is done by the Devadasis inside the temples. He was so impressed by the way they are presenting and the format in which they were presenting that he sort of used that to build the Kuchipudi solo repertoire. And why did he get influenced and was impressed? Because he taught the Mukhaja Abhinaya or the facial expressions, the Hasta Abhinaya or the gestural vocabulary, or the Padams of Kshetraya to the Devadasis of Andhra and Tamil Nadu. The Padams of Kshetraya are in Telugu. So it needs some Telugu dance teacher to teach them the Padams of Kshetraya, the Javalis also which are written in Telugu. And so the Devadasis also sought the help of people like Lakshminarayana Shastri Garu, not just him but many other Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu also. And that is how we see the cross-cultural influence between the Devadasis and the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu. They taught dance to the Devadasis and they also embraced the format and the techniques of the Devadasi dance traditions into the Kuchipudi dance drama tradition. So it was more of a cross-cultural influence. And he was so impressed with the Sadir that he applied the format of the presentation of Sadiratam, which is now called as Bharatanatyam, with some major and minor changes into the Kuchipudi solo dance style. And apart from choreographing a lot of new pieces from the compositions of Vagyekaras and poets and also taking excerpts from the Itihasas, which is Ramayana or Mahabharata or the Bhagavata Purana, he also did a very smart move, I should say. Lakshminarayana Shastri Garu had taken the excerpts of the traditional Yakshaganas that his forefathers have choreographed and created. Let's say there is a Usha Pravesha Daruvu in the Yakshaganam called as Usha Parinayam. So the Usha Pravesha Daruvu was showcased as a solo item. And let's say there is this Bhama Pravesha Daruvu in the Bhama Kalapam, which is very much to the Kuchipudi blood. Now, he has taught the Pravesha Daruvu as a solo piece. And by doing so, the scope of presenting Kuchipudi for a few minutes at various platforms increased. And because of that, the popularity of Kuchipudi has also increased. Now, gone are the days where if I have to present about Bhama, I need a team of 4 actors or 3 actors and an entire melam of orchestra. Now, that is not needed. As a solo presentation, you can also showcase Satyabhama. Right. And apart from the excerpts of Yakshaganams, Sri Sastry Garu also included the Telugu classics that he was well adept with, like the Kirtanams of Annamacharya, Kritis of Tyagaraja, Tarangams of Narayana Tirtha. Narayana Tirtha belongs to this place called as Kaja in the Guntur district of Andhra Pradesh, which is very near to the Krishna district, or it's a neighboring district to the Krishna. So the access to the Krishna Leela Tarangini was very easy for the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu that we have discussed in the very earlier lectures of this series. So the Tarangams were taken and the sort of, as I said before, the elaboration of the episodes of the life of Krishna was introduced by Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu. You take any Tarangam, the Leela of Krishna is depicted in a single line. But then the entirety of the Leela with a short Purvakadhamsham is elaborately shown by the dancer through the choreography of the dancer's guru. Now, this was an introduction that Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu has done. And Tarangams have become like a synonymous to the Kuchipudi solo tradition. You go to states like Kerala or Tamil Nadu or any other states, in the major festivals when Kuchipudi has to be showcased, the first thing that comes to the mind of the dancer and the guru is to present a Tarangam. Because it's not an easy thing to dance on the rims of a brass plate and sometimes putting a pot on the head. It also shows the physical balance techniques of the dancer and the choreography. Tarangams were a super hit, a very commercial success. Right. And also the Padams of Kshetraya, Shlokas from the Shakuntalam or the Krishna Karnamritam, even the Shloka Abhinaya, the elaboration of the Shloka Abhinaya. Let's say, for example, in a particular shloka, the goddess Lakshmi, the poet says that her eyes are like a lotus or lotus petals. Shastri Garu has elaborated that, and even in the Shloka Abhinaya, he says, this is how a lotus looks. This is how a lotus is there in a pond. And this is how the lotus petals bloom. And once they bloom, this is how the lotus petals finally look. And that is how the eyes are of Lakshmi. Now you see, with that elaboration, you can actually visualize how the eyes of the Lakshmi are. So this elaboration of the Kavi Hridayam, of the Kavi, in the dance technique of Kuchipudi, through the hand gestures or the Mukhaja Abhinayam or the facial gestures or through the Sharira Abhinayam, has gotten a lot of popularity to the Kuchipudi dance because people were understanding it more better. The cosmopolitan audience were understanding much better because to understand a language from a linguistic basis, it's very difficult for cosmopolitan audience. But if you elaborate what is told in the composition through your hand gestures and facial expressions, people would understand it much better. And when you understand something, you will appreciate it naturally. So the appreciation and the popularity of Kuchipudi is also through the introduction of the elaboration of the solo compositions by Lakshmi Narayana Shastri Garu. Sri Shastri Garu also used the excerpts from Kalapams into the solo repertoire. We have already discussed that while we were discussing the previous point. The concept of addition of Tillanas into the Kuchipudi solo form was also his vision. Until then, tilanas were not performed in the Kuchipudi dance styles. Shabdams were performed as solo, not as a solo, but as an interludes in the Yakshaganas, which were taken as an excerpts and then performed as a solo tradition. But the tilana compositions were never used in Kuchipudi dance repertoire. Lakshmi Sastry Garu has introduced the tilanas also to the solo tradition that he has initiated. All Kuchipudi students, irrespective of whose disciples they were, all learned under Sastry Garu at some point of time. He was so popular as a teacher, so popular as a choreographer, as a visionary, as a revolutionary, that no matter whoever learnt Kuchipudi and whoever learnt the Devadasi dance tradition from their respective gurus, everyone yearned to learn from Sastry Garu, learn their facial expressions, learn the hand gestures, learn the Kuchipudi that he was trying to teach. And at any point of time when people came to know that Sastry Garu was coming to their village or town or their city, the dancers made sure that they visit him, request him to teach his pieces, and that is how he expanded his disciples, and that is how he expanded the scope of Kuchipudi. He taught to so many students in his entire lifetime that almost everyone at a certain point of time were taught by Lakshmi Sastry Garu the Kuchipudi nuances. And even stalwarts like Bala Saraswati Garu, who is a very well-known Devadasi, was also his disciple in learning the Mukhajabhinayam, and she herself has told, which is documented in many articles, that it is because of Sastry Garu's teaching the Mukhajabhinaya that her understanding of the Naika has become better. And this words coming from a stalwart like Bala Saraswati Garu about her guru, Lakshmi Sastry Garu, is something which all Kuchipudi fraternity needs to be proud of. Puja Nrityam, Padavarnam, Varnam, Swarapallavi, Jatiswaram, Javali, all these were not in the repository of Kuchipudi dance drama tradition before. These were also not available to the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu. The Padams of Kshetraya, the Tarangams of Narayana Tirtha, the Kalapa Prakriya, the Annamacharya Sankirtanas, Tyagaraja Kritis, all these were available because they were produced in places which were near to the Kuchipudi district or predominantly in the Telugu language. But the concept of Puja Nrityam or a Padavarnam is not something which is very, is not something which is normal to the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu. It is very foreign to them back those days. But because of the training that he has given to the Devadasis by traveling to many places in Tamil Nadu or to the many temples in Andhra and the other regions, he saw how Puja Nrityam is performed by them, how the Padavarnams are performed, how the different Swarapallavis, Jatiswarams as a pure Nritta pieces are performed by the Devadasis. Dance drama traditions would not have a lot of Nritta exclusively. They would have the Natya element and the Nritya element as an interlude. But a pure Nritta piece will probably not serve the purpose of Yakshaganams 100%. But these Nritta pieces like the Jatiswarams or the Swarajatis, which are new to the Kuchipudi Bhagavatulu, were also introduced by Lakshmi Sastry Garu, and he choreographed a lot of them and kept it in the repository of the Kuchipudi solo tradition, taught to his disciples, made his disciples travel to every nook and corner of the country, especially south of India, and perform everywhere. That was the best thing that he has done. Showcase Kuchipudi as much as possible. If you don't showcase it, people will not know about it. That he used it. That was the best marketing technique that he used, if I have to talk in the modern terms about the Kuchipudi dance tradition. The Jati and the Konogolu patterns were also not just according to the rhythm, but also were dependent on the mood and the emotion of the composition. Now, Kuchipudi belongs to a dance drama tradition which doesn't just showcase the beauty of the dance technique, right? Predominantly it talks about a story, the emotion behind the story, the philosophy of the story, and what is the message that the story has to give. So the Kuchipudi dance tradition is not just an aesthetic experience of dance. It's a philosophical experience of the story that is being narrated. And Lakshmi Sastry Garu, when he was trying to conceptualize the jati patterns for the solo tradition, he used that philosophical base that he had for the dance drama tradition and put it in the Kuchipudi solo dance tradition, where the jatis were choreographed or conceived in the first place, not just basing on the rhythm, but also basing on the emotion of the dancer or the emotion of the composition that is being portrayed. So suddenly when you see a jati in a Kuchipudi solo dance, you won't just see the dancer suddenly jumping with energy. The jati is also flowing with the shringara of the composition, or the veera of the composition, or the raudra of the composition, or the bhakti of the composition. So the predominant rasa of the composition is also elevated through the jati patterns, which is also one of the very innovative things that Lakshmi Sastry Garu has done. And not just that, dear students, he didn't restrict the Kuchipudi dance only for the Telugu audience. Even though he has increased the base of the understanding of the audience through the different hand gestures, different facial vocabularies or expressions that is used, he also taught compositions which were not in Telugu, like Sanskrita compositions. The best example is the Tarangams of Narayana Tirtha. The Krishna Leela Tarangani is entirely a Sanskrita opera. And the Tamil compositions, Hindi compositions, Marathi compositions, and you won't believe there were also invocatory dances that he has choreographed in Marathi songs. All right. So he didn't just restrict the Kuchipudi just to the linguistic base of Telugu, but he has also expanded it to the other languages, because he was teaching students from across languages of the country, right? So he has also experimented on increasing the language base of this dance drama tradition, and that is how when a Marathi Puja Nritya in Kuchipudi style is presented to the Maharashtrian audience, who would be more happier than the audience sitting there, understanding that their language is used to present something which is done in a particular dance style. Yes, and not just these, there are many other contributions that Lakshmi Sastry Garu has done, which we will probably see in the next lecture, which is following this. Until then, namaskaram.